Hey guys, welcome to my very first episode of Far From Perfect. This is a podcast where you can anonymously share a situation you're going through. We can go over together with honest feedback and grace over judgment, and have people on here to have real conversations and discuss how we can learn from the things we go through, because none of us have it all together. Before I get into the first episode, I did want to take a brief moment to just explain a little bit about why I wanted to start this podcast, and I'll keep it short. I noticed in this generation, a lot of people commonly struggle with anxiety, guilt, and caring way too much what other people think. And as someone who has struggled with this on a tremendous level myself, all three of those things, I wish there was someone I was comfortable enough to confide in at the time and help me not let it define my life. Jesus saved me, and I believe that he can use me to help others in any little way possible that I can. And I really just ultimately want this to be an outlet for anyone who still feels like they can't go to anyone right now. And this podcast is just a way for me to spread any ounce of positivity, encouragement, or advice that I can. With that being said, I am very far from perfect. I'm learning as I go. And if this podcast can even help one person, then that is more than enough. All right, before we get into the anonymous responses, I wanted to make my first episode extra special. So I have my mom here with me today. Not a lot of people know this, but my mom actually was in a band in the 80s named after her middle name, Saraya. What advice do you say you'd give to anybody trying to get into a career like that?
If you do it the honorable way, it's a lot of knocking on doors and waiting, a lot of rejection. You have to be able to take rejection and grow a thick skin and believe in yourself enough that you, no matter what people tell you, you will not stop until you get to your goal. And so that takes a lot of tenacity. It takes a lot of no matter what people say, you can't let them put chinks in your armor. You have to keep going and believe in yourself enough, or love what you're doing so much that you will not settle for anything else.
So how'd you get into music?
My parents, like every parent, wants their child to go to college and do all that. So I thought maybe I would just do the bar scene for a while I went to school. However, that didn't pan out because I was getting home at 3 or 4 in the morning. My first class was at 7:30. I was late for class all the time. Coming home from college, I almost got run over by a Coca-Cola truck. I almost got killed.
What?
You didn't know that?
No.
I never told you? Yeah.
Did you go to the hospital?
No, I fell asleep at the wheel. He missed me by that. I was going to go over overpass. Yeah.
That's scary.
So I pulled over, and in that moment I said, that's when I knew I have to quit. So I went home, told my mom and dad I'm quitting, and they thought I was quitting music. So I told them, no, I'm not quitting music. I'm quitting college. And that sent them into a tailspin. But eventually, when I started getting gigs, and then when I finally got my record deal, they were on board, full on.
What goals did you hit in your music career?
I hit them all. I just wanted to sing. I just wanted to sing live and make a comfortable living doing what I love to do. The fame part, I was never cut out for that. I was too shy.
But you did performances. You went on MTV.
Oh, yes.
You opened for Def Leppard.
Yes, I did. I did many tours. I hosted I forgot what show it was on MTV. I did my videos. I got to travel everywhere. I went to England, and we opened up for Bon Jovi. We opened up for many acts. But most of all, I just loved performing for my fans and doing songs not written by other people for me to sing, but songs that meant enough to me that I was able to live the songs out on stage. And I think that's why my fan base, for some reason, really believed in the authenticity of my career.
When did you realize that when you were meeting all of your goals, it still wasn't fulfilling in life?
Okay, so it was when we came off of the first tour, And that was like a real high, because going to all these different cities where I'd never been before. I was a small town girl, and these people are singing every single word. And it was just mind-boggling for me. I was like, wait a minute, how did they know these songs? I mean, I don't even know these people. They don't know me.
Yeah.
But it was after I had my, I think, second video out. The record companies were very generous. They got us brand new tour bus. We were, I mean, touring with people that I admired. I had, you know, everything I wanted at my fingertips. I had everything. I thought I had everything. And that's when it hit me, when I said, okay, I'm young, doing my career on my terms. I didn't have to sell myself out, you know, do anything compromising to get where I got. It took a long time. It took 7 years of knocking on doors. But it was when I had the videos, the albums, the touring, everything. I had money, I had this, that. And then I realized that I was empty. I was just so empty. And I couldn't figure out why, because I had always thought, as soon as I get this, check the box, check the box, check the box, and attain all these goals I had for myself, I thought, hey, I'm gonna be so happy. Well, I was not. And I didn't know why, had no clue why. So that was very eye-opening, and heart-wrenching at the same time, because I was like, what am I gonna do to be happy? I have everything. And nothing satisfied. So I didn't know what to do next. And then finally, one day I was in my room. I came off a tour. I was in my room and I said to myself, you know, I started talking to God, and I was like...
But you didn't really believe at the time?
I believed in Jesus from my Catholic upbringing. I had a fear of God, but not a healthy fear. It was like I was actually afraid. I always kept him... I had...
In the back of your head?
Yeah. And
I think a lot of people with a very strict upbringing in religion makes them scared, like you were saying. It makes them have this fear of God that, you know, he's going to send them to hell, or they have to follow these set of rules in order to be welcomed. But if you open up the Bible, it's funny because he accepts you for exactly who you are, good or bad, no matter how many mistakes you've made. Especially in this generation, a lot of things get twisted. You say you're Christian and people are like, oh, so you're judgmental.
Right.
And a lot of people have unfortunately put a bad rep on Christianity. And I think it's sad, because if you truly open the Word of God, all it does is really teach you to love him and love others and not judge and be kind.
I think a week before the room incident, I had sent away for some Eastern philosophy cassette tapes that would help ease anxiety and maybe clear your mind. I thought, okay, it sounded good. I found it in the back of Cosmopolitan magazine. And I said, I'll send away for these tapes, see what they do. I got the tapes. I was so happy. Put them in the cassette player. And all I heard was like this music that sounded like someone was plucking a piece of dental floss, like like that. And I was like, what? And at that point, I was like, I'm ready to like jump off the GW bridge. Okay, that's how like empty and confused I was. So I started bawling my eyes out. I was in my room on my bed, and I don't know why, but I just started talking to God, and I said, if you're real, if you are really out there, then show me the path to take. Show me which road to choose. And I had a little Bible that I kept covered with a old book cover that had a Levi's jean pocket on front, and it was in the basket in the corner of my room. And I didn't know it then, but it was the Holy Spirit that was saying to me, like not in an audible voice, but on my heart, I felt this like real strong pull to go get that Bible. So I went, picked it up, opened it to Psalm 25, and I looked down, and the first verses that I saw in that psalm said, show me the path to take, show me which road to choose. And then I had just uttered those same exact words like seconds before. And I was like, wait a minute. You're here in this room. You're not up in the sky, waiting for me to like die on my deathbed. You're here. You just heard everything I said. And I just started crying and I was like, oh my gosh, God is real. And I called up my born again Christian cousin who had been trying to like get me to go to church for like years. And I would always say to her, get away from me. I'll never be one of you born again Christians carrying 10 Bibles. I will never be that. And I called her up and I said, Karen, I said, just answer me one thing. What was the name of that little Christian bookstore you told me about? And she screamed. She knew right away. She went, oh my gosh, you found Jesus. I was like, shut up, okay?
No, it's definitely a difference between religion and just a one-on-one relationship with Jesus and just believing in him and his word and walking in a path with him. It's not a set of rules. It's not a perfect life you have to live. It is simply just learning to be kind and considerate towards others. So in that moment that you started sobbing and having that breakdown, did you feel any ounce of fulfillment or peace?
I did. And, some people say they feel this supernatural thing. I didn't feel a supernatural thing, but I felt finally the anxiety was lifted. I knew someone outside of myself and outside of everyone else who ever loved me that was in my life. I knew I was very, very deeply loved. I felt that in that moment. I was finally, like I arrived. If I could describe it like a hug, it was almost like that. I knew it was real.
Did you think you were gonna have 5 kids?
No.
Did you find fulfillment in that?
Oh yes. And
no matter how crazy we were?
No. I always think to myself, if I could just go back and just redo that time, I wouldn't change a thing, not one thing.
All right, change of scenery because it was scorching hot in there. If there's one piece of advice you could give to someone who's maybe in the same exact position as you were, where they're achieving all of their goals in their industry, yet they still don't feel fulfilled, what advice would you give them?
If you get to that point and you still don't find fulfillment, you have to ask yourself, you have to go within yourself. And I would, on my road, I would advise you to look to God. But not everybody does that, goes that route. So if that's the case where, you can't relate to a God, then I would look within yourself and question whether, maybe you should be doing something else or be focused on achieving your goals with integrity, because you don't want to compromise your integrity.
Absolutely.
I mean, once you do that, what's the point? I mean, you're not going to be fulfilled if you have regret about the roads you took to make it.
Yeah, no matter what your beliefs are, I feel like having a set of morals never hurts.
No.
And applying that to your life and living off of that. There's a lot of people who are compromising their moral values in order to achieve their goals faster. Were there any moments where somebody asked you maybe to compromise what you believed in?
Yes.
Can you talk about a situation?
A situation where, a very prominent manager in the business at that time, my band members were very excited because he was a big name. He also had a bunch of, famous artists, and for us to be, this baby band that didn't even have a record deal yet, for him to have taken us under his wing we were all so excited. But unfortunately, people in the industry with that kind of power, you can fall. especially women, can fall prey to these kind of individuals that think that they can get you from point A to B if you do them favors of the nasty kind.
What did you do when you were in that situation?
Well, I remember I was at the Beverly Hills Hilton and had come off a dinner discussion and thought everything was great, and we went back to the hotel, and he said, oh, could you wait here in the lobby? I'm gonna go and take a phone call. And I said, yeah, sure. And I thought, wow, that's neat, because I had some suspicions at that point. He's taking me to the hotel. But when he said, wait in the lobby and I'll come down, and well, he never came down, and I had no ride. We didn't have cell phones back then. So I was at the mercy of, this person. He finally comes down and says, I am so sorry. I've been on this meeting call and it's still going on, and I didn't want to have you wait any longer. If you want, you could come upstairs and wait. And I thought initially, because he didn't invite me up there, that I was safe. So I went up there, and I remember I was waiting. He took his phone call in the bedroom, and I was out in the little guest area. And all of a sudden, he called me, and he said my name, he called me, and there he was in a robe, bed turned down, and him just going. And in that moment, I knew. I proceeded to grab my things and head to the door, and he blocked the door. And that's when
I would be so scared. Were you terrified?
Yes. I was thinking, how do I get out of this situation? I was scared because it was like he pulled the rug out from underneath me. Like I trusted him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's doing this. He was like, you're not leaving here, you're not leaving here. And I just finally said, okay. And I looked down, and all of a sudden I went, wham, with my knee right in his privates. And I opened that door, I ran down the hallway, and he's screaming at me, I will blacklist you, and no one will ever take your demos, ever take an audition, nothing. And I just ran for my life. We were right on the cusp of signing with him as a manager, and he was going to get our foot in the door. And, so everything I worked so hard for, like I said, I was plugging away. It was like 1 year, 2 years, 3, 4, 5. It took 7 years for me to finally land my record deal. So I would say this happened between the 5th or 6th year. And it was a heartbreak, and my band members, though, they totally were on my side. They stood behind me. They're like, look, it doesn't matter if we don't,
Yeah.
So they were like my brothers.
Yeah.
So although, it set us back another couple of years, we packed up. This was at California at the time. We packed up our stuff and just headed back home. I went under a different name. I had to, but finally, God knew I was going to have to take this path to get to him eventually. So he opened up the doors, and there we were, getting signed to Polygram. So yeah, let's just say I just closed the door on that chapter, because I really did get everything I wanted out of it. To have gone further would have meant, pursuing fame, and that's not really something I was wanting. Once I had my family, I knew I arrived. So the moral of the story is there's always going to be people that don't like you. And
you can't control that.
No,
though.
you can't.
I had a hard time accepting that, I think, growing up. Sometimes I still struggle with it, but you cannot control what people think about you. And you trying to control this narrative is keeping them in control of you. The amount of time you spend thinking about yourself, that's how much time everyone else thinks about themselves. They're not focused on you. So
Right.
to give your time to other people stressing about what they think, it's gonna drain you at the end of the day. I do think it's an amazing story about how you reached all of your goals that you wanted to in music, and you thought from a young age that that's what was gonna fulfill you, but you found your own fulfillment later on in age. And I feel like a lot of people in our generation put a lot of pressure on themselves to have their life all put together right now, and what they don't realize is all of that will come with time.
Sure.
And you can find peace in that right now.
You find your core people, and you'll establish your core by knowing who's going to love you unconditionally and who is not. You want to, have a core group of people that you will give your heart to. You will give 100% of your energy, your time, your effort.
I think a lot of people, they put so much time and energy into people that won't reciprocate, and it hurts them really bad.
Sure.
And I was talking about this with my friend actually, about how opening up to the wrong people is really could be really draining, because you're not going to get the same empathy back. You're not going to get the same energy, the same emotional awareness. I've poured out so many emotions over and over and over that just weren't being understood, and it was just because I was giving them to the wrong person.
Of course.
There's going to be people who really don't care about how you feel, and there's going to be people who show that to you over and over and over again. And if you keep trying to force them to understand, you're giving them so much power that you can't waste your energy on it. And the best thing you could do is either move on from it or accept them for how they are, and know that they're never going to give that back to you.
Right.
And just be at peace with that and not share too much with those people anymore.
When you're young, the tendency is you want to be liked by so many people. The tendency is to be a people pleaser. You want everyone to like you, and so you start actually taking for granted the people who are there for you.
I find peace in, like, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But definitely don't compromise.
And don't chase it.
Yeah.
For people who do follow God, your whole identity and your wholeness and completeness will come from that relationship first and foremost. Jesus has a way of plugging up all the holes, and when you are deeply loved by your Creator, and you have a relationship like that, it's so easy to forgive other people. It's so easy to feel loved, even if the world turns their whole back on you.
And forgiveness is a journey. It's not just something you do one time in one singular moment and then it's all forgotten. It's not a one-time thing. Every time you think of the thing they did that hurt you, you have to continually forgive them for that. And forgiveness also doesn't mean you have to keep them in your life. It just means it's more for you. It's more for you, so that you could find peace.
Right.
And you can resonate with the fact that it just wasn't meant to be, and that's okay, and I can move on from that. Because when you don't forgive people who have hurt you, you're just letting them hold a part of you captive, and you're not letting it go, and you're giving them more power than you intend to. And it's really just something that you have to do on your own to be able to have peace of mind.
I think to not obsess about it too. Not obsess about it. I give all my cares to God, and it's easy for me to say, I can't take care of this. I would love reconciliation. I would love this to work out, so here it is. And then release it. And because really, I mean, He's the one who can change hearts. We can't.
Yeah. I think we'll get into some of the anonymous responses that I got. My first response is, I'm in my late 20s living in a city with a very stressful job. I love being by myself because work is super draining, but I also hate isolating myself. I think in this economy, it's super hard to make a living. And so any job is super stressful because no one's doing it for fun anymore. Everyone's doing it to make money, to be able to put food on their table, to be able to pay rent. So my biggest advice, I think, for this one would be try to find as much balance as you can. On days that you come home and feel like isolating yourself after a hard day of work, try not to. Try reaching out to somebody, whether it's a friend you have around or maybe going out to dinner, treating yourself even. That's the first step, is just going out into a social setting rather than staying at home and locking yourself up. If you love being alone, but you hate feeling isolated, I think the loneliness is honestly just a temporary feeling, and ultimately you hate being isolated. So put yourself in situations that you're not isolated, even if you feel like you don't want to.
Or maybe, once a week you can volunteer.
Yeah.
And
volunteering at church helped me a lot with my isolation state, because when I really locked in on myself and I really wanted to understand my values and my morals and who I wanted to be as a person, I actually prayed and I said, God, if there's anyone you don't want in my life anymore, please remove them. Or if there's anything setting me back, please open the doors. And whether you go to God or whether you just have that moment with yourself where you're like, okay, I need to change. That's kind of what I was experiencing. And I lost the closest people to me. And I was super lonely. And I didn't really trust to become close with anyone because I was scared after everything that I went through, losing the people that were closest to me. I didn't want that to happen again. And I started volunteering with kids, and it helped me a lot. It made me so joyful. I met my boyfriend volunteering that I'm dating right now, and he's amazing. And I've made so many friends, and just finding any little community. I think that's a great point. Volunteering is,
I think it's, anytime you don't focus in on yourself and you focus on somebody else or meeting somebody else's need, it works wonders. It takes your eyes off of your situation and how gratifying it is to help somebody or to make time for somebody that needs a friend, or and I don't know, is there a saying? I think if you want friends, be a friend.
You can't expect things to just fall into your lap and come to you. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. I wish it was, because that would have made things a lot easier for me. You will have to put yourself out there to get to where you want to be. It's going to be uncomfortable, but uncomfortable situations are what make us grow at the end of the day. And I think it's super important to go out of your comfort zone. All right, this is the last one. I had a group of friends in high school who continuously left me out, and I would have such bad FOMO. Now that I'm in college, I feel like I'm intruding when I try to include myself in hanging out with people for upcoming events. So I keep my distance and am terrified to ask people to hang out, and I just feel like I continue to be left out, but I can't tell if it's me being all in my head. You said this group would continually leave you out, which means they knew what they were doing, I'm guessing, and they knew how they were making you feel. So now that you're in college, I don't think people are actually trying to leave you out. I just think that your brain is telling you, oh my gosh, this is happening again, because you used to struggle with it back then.
Like projecting.
Yeah, projection. With anxiety too. Neurologically, our brains, when something pops up that reminds us of a stressful or traumatic thing we went through, your brain is trying to tell you, this is happening and I'm trying to protect you from it happening again. But again, it's just something that you've projected in your mind. Right. Now, there's obviously a difference between people who just don't want to hang out with you and do try leaving you out, and people who just don't think of it. Well, since these are new people that you don't actively know are trying to make you hurt, you have to approach it like, okay, they just don't know. And I need to try making plans before I go and put a label on these people. And don't let people from your past ruin your experiences with new people. you're not going through it again. You're just brushing up against an old wound. You need to just take a step back for a moment and say, these people are not the same people as the ones who were trying to always leave me out. Let me ask them what they're doing instead of always wanting it to fall into my lap. Maybe they struggle with the same thing you do and they're gatekeeping themselves.
You know, ultimately what it is fear of rejection. And the fear of rejection alone will isolate you. So you need to push, you know, through that fear.
Yeah.
You have to take chances in life, and it's not comfortable. Taking chances is not a comfortable thing, but it does grow your character, and it puts you in the realm of, yes, I can make connections, as opposed to not trying at all. So.
Well, thank you for being on, Mom.
You're welcome.
I love you.
Love you more.
I couldn't have done this first episode without you. I feel I definitely feel weird doing this. Well, thank you guys for listening. If you guys want to anonymously send in your stories so we get to talk about it on the podcast, the link is in my bio on Instagram, on TikTok, in the link tree. If you just want somebody to talk to, you can DM the Instagram Far From Perfect. And I will see you guys not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that, because it's every other Wednesday now, because I can't do every Wednesday.